Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm your host, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. The Tenpenny Files isn't just another podcast, it's a daily discussion with guests whose research has discovered evidence that challenges official narratives and commonly seen headlines. Topics span the spectrum from national government, history, astronomy, and travel to food and fitness, to vaccines, health, and health policy, and to authors who write about faith and biblical principles. I want to introduce you to topics that you've never heard of before or topics you've always wished you had time to explore but didn't get around to it. This is the show for you. Join me here every day at the Tenpenny Files on AmericaOutloud.news and the iHeart radio stations at 3 p.m. Eastern to hear from authors and documentary filmmakers who have something important to say that have often been silenced or censored. And before I introduce to you today our special guest, I want to encourage my listeners to become a Tenpenny Prime member. You will benefit from a monthly white paper, pre-recorded presentations, and an Ask the Expert masterclass. To learn more, go to primemembership.drtenpenny.com and click on the membership tab to learn more and hopefully to join us. So today's conversation is with professor, entrepreneur, author, and podcaster Marc Beckman to talk about his book, Some Future Day: How AI is Going to Change Everything, a thought-provoking guide to many ways in which AI will transform our lives for the better. Marc, welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm so excited to talk to you today. I've been looking forward to this interview for weeks. Thank you for being here.
It's really such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Well, you have such an upbeat view of the future of AI and see it integrating to every area of our life: business, advertising, politics, medicine, and more. What are the ethical and privacy considerations leaders should keep in mind as this AI movement moves forward?
Well, it's interesting that you start with regards to ethics and privacy. There are a lot of issues that are going to open up as it relates to morals and ethics. In particular, one concern that I have is with regards to children. And we could get into the issues surrounding religion too in a little bit. But when you begin with children, the fact is that we're already seeing some problems rise because of artificial intelligence. So, by way of example, Dr. Tenpenny, um, ChatGPT and other LLMs have been used by minors that are seeking counsel with different types of mental illnesses. Some individuals may have an eating disorder. Some people might just be, really low self-esteem and lacking ego to make their own decisions. And they're having a difficult time discerning between an actual human therapist and a machine. And as a result, they're being injured. In fact, there have been reports going back to the end of this summer that showed that certain people with these types of issues ended up committing suicide. And these big companies, including OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, are starting to put certain safeguards into place to protect these types of, let's say, vulnerable individuals, minors, and then individuals who might be suffering from some kind of a mental illness or alike. The problem that I see, Dr. Tenpenny, is that we know that children in many cases are more savvy with tech than their adult parents, and they know how to override the types of safeguards that perhaps Sam Altman, the owner of OpenAI, might put into place. So now what's happening is, and the reason that it's a disconcerting situation is that the LLM, the artificial intelligence, is a predictive model. For those in your audience who don't understand generative AI, essentially what's happening is an algorithm this is really the most simple way to explain it. It's an algorithm that is trained to predict what the correct answer could be, what the next piece of artwork might look like, what the next word in a speech might come across as. But it doesn't have any intelligence. It doesn't have any empathy or logic or anything of this nature. So, as you're very well aware, when it comes to humans, everyone's nuanced. Everyone is their own individual. So, if we find someone who has an eating disorder, the LLM, the AI, could effectively be providing guidance and advice that is totally wrong, but is trained by predicting what that particular individual might want to hear. So the AI could actually be doing its job correctly, but providing bad advice because it's not human. And this is like one area as it relates to morals that I'm concerned about. How do we protect those vulnerable individuals that won't be able to discern? They have nowhere else to go to. They find in the comfort of their home, in their privacy, some use of AI that is beneficial to them. But we know as responsible adults, that's in fact not the case at all.
Isn't there some concerns as AI moves forward? Isn't the next generation AIG, I believe, that they think that it's going to become more sentient and it's already in the place where it has been able to write its own algorithms to, when people try to shut it down, to keep itself from shutting down, and that it's sort of taking on a life of its own. Isn't that a concern of where this may be going in the future?
So what you're referencing is actually called AGI, and this is what happens when the technology is training itself. It's educating itself at a pace that's more accelerated than humans. So just to back up for a minute to share with you and your audience, right now we have what I refer to as an LLM, a large language model, and these are great. There are great platforms now that are set up. It could be Elon Musk's platform called Grok. It could be, like I said, OpenAI's platform, ChatGPT. Perplexity is excellent. And what happened is that the founders of these companies and their teams have used the entire corpus of information and data that humans have created to train these LLMs, to train these models. So if you ask questions surrounding science or math, history, language. The LLMs are trained on, imagine this corpus of data. It could be anything from the Bible to a history book. It could be a newspaper article to a podcast show. So typically, these LLMs are trained in that way. But what they're doing is they continue to train themselves faster and faster and faster. So the LLM, the machine's ability to execute on a mathematical equation or on a scientific issue, could grow faster than humans. At that point, that's when the artificial intelligence reaches the stage of AGI. It's interesting that you raise the topic because Elon highlights the fact a lot of people believe we're there already, but the public doesn't know it. And people are fearful of that. People are afraid that at this point in time, I get this question all the time. This is when the robots are turning the weapons back at the humans. This is when, AI could be used on its own to, perhaps I don't want to be alarming to your audience at all, but the AI itself could create a virus and use the technology and the infrastructure to infect our water supply and beyond. That's a big issue that people are concerned about. But AGI could be wonderful too. It could be used to find cures to diseases and illnesses. It could create new medicines. It's going to be used in the biotech space. So yes, we're barreling towards AGI. Even your comment with regards to AGI having the ability to behave in a rational way is exciting to me personally. But at the end of the day, it's still just a machine. Even AGI, maybe it could outsmart us, right? It won't let you and me turn it off, perhaps, right? But at the end of the day, that's just a machine. It's still not human, and we still need to rely on our human experiences, compassion, and empathy more so than a machine. For everything, by the way, Dr. Tenpenny, not just these important areas that you and I are covering on, but think about it. Great music is created from emotions of the human. If you and I wanted to use one of these LLMs to write a beautiful song today, let's say a freedom song, all about like revolution and all, it could come out, it could be beautiful, but never ever will Grok create a song as beautiful as Bob Dylan, right? So we need that human emotion to propel the sciences, to propel the arts and beyond.
You bring up the next point that I wanted to ask you about is when content is created by Grok or as ChatGPT, who owns that content and who has the rights to it? Can you copyright it? Is there copyright infringements? I mean, you talk about fair use and transformative use in your book. But I've wondered that myself when something gets written, who owns it? Do you own it? Does ChatGPT own it? How does that work?
So there are a couple of tipping points there, Dr. Tenpenny. So first, when what most people do, and I bet you a lot of your audience is guilty of this too. I certainly am. When you download an app, you don't read all of the terms and conditions. So the first issue of property rights, of ownership of intellectual property, one should consider are the terms and conditions, the contract that the user of the generative AI, the LLM, is engaging with as it relates to Grok, Perplexity, ChatGPT, or any of the other big large language models, because you might be sharing your creation with the owners of that platform. And it's incredible for your audience that don't know. Like today, you could go on and create a song, a beautiful song. You could create a gorgeous piece of artwork. You could create photorealistic photography, video. You could create a short film from your apartment in New York City if you're a 17-year-old today, literally today. So you need to first look at what the ownership rights of that original content, where they land in the terms and conditions of the agreement. The second piece that one needs to think about is how you're creating, or how that artwork, that new piece, is brought to life. So, for example, if you want to use a piece of art that another artist created originally, right? So let's say you want to create like a Picasso inspired image of a woman. If you use that artwork from Picasso, this goes back to now American law surrounding intellectual property, trademark, copyright, and in some cases, it will also bring in patent law. If you use an existing piece of artwork, but then transform it in a way that is up to date and unique, the original artist doesn't necessarily own the rights to it. I think in my book, I talk about one of George Orwell's books, Animal Farm. I believe it was Animal Farm, where a writer recently transformed. He showed, like, it was a woman. She showed how these characters in Animal Farm grew beyond George Orwell's book. And there was a lawsuit from Orwell's estate, and the estate lost because her book, the new author, transformed all of these characters beyond what Orwell originally intended. So it's interesting. You could start to see artwork coming out of these LLMs. Like, for example, there's one artist that I love who's creating these beautiful images of Nike sneakers made of glass. They're so magical. I know it's hard to believe, like a Nike sneaker being a beautiful piece of artwork. Maybe it's a little Warhol-esque, right? Who I think is from your neighborhood, right? But at the oh no, he's from Pittsburgh, right? But at the end of the day, what people need to understand is it's not just a free for all. You can't just steal music. You can't just steal existing artwork, photography. There are guidelines on it, and you need to be careful as to what you're developing through the use of artificial intelligence.
Well, I understand that if you're kind of copying something like a Nike tennis shoe. But what happens if they generate something from scratch? Like I was writing an article, like I write a lot of things. I have two different Substacks. One is Eye on the Evidence, which is more medical and topical related current events. Then I write a Sunday Substack that's called Tenpenny Walk with God.substack.com. And I was writing a series of articles on fear not, on the verses in the Bible that talk about fear not. And I would start in the way that it was set up, and I would write a little story, the Bible verse, write a little story about it, then applications to today and what you could do instead. And on several of those, I asked ChatGPT after I got done writing it. I use ChatGPT frequently as an editor because the editing capabilities are, everybody needs an editor. As you know, you've written books, everybody needs a good editor. And then I ask it to design a picture that would go with the story. And they were really quite good. And I gave them directions on the colors and, the style of what I thought it was going to look like. Do I own that picture?
It's my understanding that if your text prompt to create that picture is fully original for you, then you have ownership rights over that image.
Mm. And so the same thing would be if you ask ChatGPT to write a 40-page ebook on something like pertussis or music.
Books, songs, scripts. the videos, films, all of it then would be retained as far as ownership for the creator.
Very good. That's good to know. And you, with your background as a lawyer, that's really taken as unofficial legal advice. How's that sound?
Yeah, definitely unofficial because there are nuances. So think about so like the nuance comes into play because artificial intelligence in some situations, it's just being looked at when it comes to artwork as another tool. So think about the evolution of artwork. If you're a digital artist and this is pre-AI and you create a beautiful wall of art that's on a screen outside of the Duomo, right, in Italy, that artwork is your creation. It's just a different tool. It's not a paintbrush. It's not paint, and you're just using technology to create it. So there's it's an interesting argument right now that's happening in art circles too, Dr. Tenpenny, where people are asking, are these people real artists?
Mhm.
And the fact that you're talking about, like, I don't know if you're trained in art at all, or if you have the ability to create art yourself. Do you?
A little bit. My
Yeah.
mom, and so I have a little bit of her skill set.
Yeah. So that's great because you probably could manipulate your text prompt is probably better than the average person, which is very exciting. But, people are saying, well, it's not really art because AI is creating. But I believe that it's only a matter of time until this new genre of art stands itself up. And it's going to create some really cool experiences because now you're looking at it within the borders of a screen. But it's only, and I think I get into this in the book too, it's only a matter of time until you and your friends, all of your listeners of this show, are going to be walking down the streets of New York City, Cleveland, Los Angeles, Chicago, and the world around you will become a hybrid and customized based on what it is that you want to be immersed in. It could be a film, it could be a television show, it could be music, but this is all on the way. It's all going to happen soon, and there's going to be commercial application to that too, Dr. Tenpenny. So think in terms of you walk into a store and you want to buy yourself, a beautiful sweater. But we all, I mean, at least I do. I hate going shopping. I hate talking to the salesperson. I don't want somebody overselling me. So I'll walk into the store and, somebody that I appreciate will give me a customized virtual experience. I'll be greeted by someone in a likeness that I could relate to. And that person that is fueled by AI will have the ability to say to me, like, hey, I know that you are eco conscious and I know that you like to wear black sweaters. And here are some, before you go into the store, here are some designs that they have. Here are the price points. If you want to try it on, here's where it is. So, this idea of having a hybrid reality that is customized and represented both visually and from an audio perspective is going to happen very soon.
I remember reading that section. You used that example in your book, the
Yeah.
book's Future Day. You used that example about going shopping. And as I was reading that, I was thinking somewhere this AI has gotten all that personal information from you. What about, privacy issues with that? I mean, assuming that you have to give it permission, but there's so much stuff like even on social media that that social media knows about you, and suddenly you have Amazon ads popping up everywhere because you looked for something on Amazon one time. Where does the privacy lines draw with the future of AI?
So you're raising a good topic. It's broad. We could have like 5 shows about this topic, but you mentioned it at the opening of the show, and something that came to mind is the use of a Chinese app called DeepSeek. I don't know if you're familiar with DeepSeek, but it competes with ChatGPT, Grok, and Perplexity. It was created by a Chinese company, and it's interesting to me as it relates to privacy, Dr. Tenpenny, because this Chinese app was totally disruptive. It went to number one in America's App Store overnight. Millions and millions of people, in particular Gen Z and Gen Alpha, downloaded it because it didn't cost any money, whereas the American brands that I keep talking about are pretty expensive. This one is free. So China came in, they disrupted the marketplace, and in their terms and conditions, they mention that any of the content that one creates or uploads on its platform is owned by the company. And now you understand, or some of your viewers might not understand this actually, so I'll highlight it. If a If information is stored on a server in China from any kind of company, it could be the NBA, it could be a fashion brand, or it could be DeepSeek, this AI platform, your information is then the property of the Chinese government. So, what people are doing with like you can imagine, what people are doing with DeepSeek and other platforms is they're uploading. Imagine like big CEOs of publicly traded companies, they're uploading proprietary information, proprietary data, trade secrets, their driver's license, records of their family history, and all. People need to understand that each product that they're using, each corporation that they're using, they have different terms and conditions. So that's a big issue. When you talk about privacy, imagine these kids, like, we have like these bright-eyed, eager kids that want to use AI for so many different reasons, not just cheating on their homework, but they're uploading to a platform like DeepSeek their personal ID, their name, their address, their credit card information, and then in some cases, very personal issues, and then that's owned by the Chinese government. It's pretty scary, actually.
Really quite is. And one of the premises of your book that some future day that you talk about is about leveling the playing field. And you use an example of a gal that's in New York City that designs something, and now suddenly she can compete with the big fashion houses. Um, I would imagine, and you thought from the way that I read it in your book, you were sort of celebrating that the little guy now has a chance. But I would imagine that from the big boys wouldn't like that very much. So, what kind of employment factors does that impact? And what does that impact in terms of market disruption?
This is one of my favorite parts of the book. It's the opening. I call it the Age of Imagination. We have these big, big legacy businesses, Hollywood, fashion, publishing, and beyond, that require so much money to stand up, layers and layers of personnel. And that individual dreamer that wants to launch their own song, their own fashion business, their own book can never compete. You can't compete with the LVMH or Keurings in the fashion and luxury world. It's impossible. So now they can. Now they could create their own product. They could create their own ad campaigns. Small business owners definitely are going to benefit from this democratization caused by AI. Now, your question is what happens in the job market? So, a lot of the doomsday perspective is, uh-oh, AI is going to eliminate tons and tons of jobs. Will it? Yes, it will, for sure. So, starting at the white collar tier, if you're in creative fields, advertising, the sciences, mathematics, think in terms of architecture, lawyers, and beyond. These industries are going to be totally transformed. If you're an attorney and you're a sole practitioner and you can't compete with one of these massive, massive law firms because you don't have the personnel, now you could have the ability to do research and write memorandums of law, write appeals, literally in real time. It's incredible the advantage you're going to get, which is fantastic. But what's going to happen is it's going to cut out all of those individuals from the big law firms that are generating income because of the need for staffing in those areas. So think about it. Accountants, lawyers, advertising agencies, they're all going to get cut. Blue collar workers are going to get cut too, Dr. Tenpenny. So think in terms of, for me, my book talks about both AI and robotics. So automation and robotics are coming at us in a big way. A lot of what President Trump is building as it relates to our nation's infrastructure includes automation at the factory level. So AI will make and create more efficiencies. It's already shown, for example, Jeff Bezos at Amazon has used artificial intelligence. Most of his big warehouses are being run through robotics, not humans. So we'll lose there too. So why am I optimistic? Because history has shown that whenever new technology comes, people are afraid about job elimination, but yet new types of jobs are created. And I believe that AI will do that for us too. Even going back to the transformation from horse and buggy into automobile, People were freaking out about it. They were so scared that it's going to create a terrible society. And yet, our open roads and our connection across the country allowed for all different types of new jobs to be created, jobs that have never been dreamed of before. So it's not going to be too long until new businesses will be stood up by these individual dreamers that couldn't compete with the big companies, new jobs. New reasons to create businesses will stand up. Like, who's going to take care of your robot that's cleaning your house now, that's running your errands? What happens when that robot breaks down? We're going to have all kinds of new jobs coming as a result of this new technology. And I think ultimately these economies will boom because of it. I think America's already feeling the positive benefit because of AI's three legs: software, hardware, and energy.
Wow, that puts a completely different spin on a lot of the other books that I've read and a lot of the long form documentaries or long form podcast interviews that I've read. And I think that that's a really good place for us to just take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Hold that thought. We will be right back. America Out Loud Radio plays the Tenpenny Files on iHeartRadio daily, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can also listen anywhere in the world by going to americaoutloud.news and logging into their media player. And if you've missed any of these great conversations, you can find the Tenpenny Files on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart Virtual Studios, and on my platforms on Rumble, X, and dr10penny.com and dr10penny.substack.com. Because there are so many great books and documentaries and so little time to read and watch, this show is meant to maximize your time and jumpstart your interests. We have a great message coming from our sponsors that keep us and America Out Loud.news on air. Sit tight and listen. We will be right back. Zeolite is a detox spray. We work specifically with a company called Touchstone Essentials. They are an incredible company. We've been working with them now for several years. And zeolite is a mineral that goes through your body like a one-way basket. It will clean out heavy metals such as arsenic and mercury, aluminum, cadmium, and it hooks onto those metals from a one-way perspective. So once it's bound, it goes out through your urine or your stools and doesn't get redeposited in other places. Everybody needs to have a detox product in their life, and this one is so easy to use and it's so safe. You can take it when you're pregnant, you can take it when you're nursing, you can give it to little children, you can even give it to infants, and quite frankly, I give it to my dog. I actually put a little bit of the zeolite in his water because until we all stop living in a toxic world, we all need to get some of those extra toxicities out. The heavy metals, the persistent organic pollutants, the things that are floating through the air, the different things that we come in touch with in our environment. And we are a big fan of zeolite from Touchstone Essentials. We've been a big fan of their products for several years. Go to dr10penny.com/detox to get your first bottle of zeolite spray for $50 off.
Well, only when the government bows to the people will America become great again. This is Malcolm Out Loud here. Join me in pushing back against censorship, my fellow Americans. Right at the top of AmericaOutloud.news are the words: many voices, one freedom, united in the First Amendment. Now is our time, my fellow Americans. AmericaOutloud.news, liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're talking with professor, entrepreneur, author, and podcaster Marc Beckman about his book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. And his perspective is it's going to all change for the better. So let me tell you a little bit more about Marc Beckman. Marc Beckman founded the award-winning agency DMA United with a modern vision combining commercially oriented principles with branding and advertising. After graduating from Hofstra University Law School, he was admitted to the state bar associations in New York, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C. Beckman is an adjunct professor at NYU Stern's MBA program and is a co-chairman at NYU Stern's Luxury and Fashion Council. In addition, he is a senior fellow at NYU and co-chairman of New York State Bar Association's Cryptocurrency, Digital Asset, and Blockchain Technology Task Force. So he knows what he's talking about, very much so. So Marc, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here. With your credentials as a backdrop, how do you address concerns that AI could dehumanize interactions and replace essential human roles? You've
Wow,
talked
that's
a little bit, but expand on that a bit.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Look, the reality is that artificial intelligence is more than just generative AI, as we had discussed earlier. It also creates immersive environments. So there are some people who might prefer existing in an immersive environment more so than pressing the flesh with their friends and family. So, for example, the next generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, their screen time and their interaction with digital is way bigger than anything our generation has ever dreamed of. It's more than we experienced. And their ability to do business from anywhere in the world is really transformative. So imagine if you're 21 years old, you graduate college, you're looking for a job, but you don't really want to move to a major city like Cleveland or New York City or Chicago. You want to live on an island and you want to do business in a way that isn't necessarily in person. Artificial intelligence allows that person to take meetings now in an immersive environment to show products, to highlight product attributes, benefits, and beyond in hyper realistic images, hyper realistic settings, like never before imagined. That person will be spending a ton of his or her time in this immersive digital realm. They're already doing it, right? They're doing it with Dress to Impress. They're doing it with Roblox. They're already gaming like crazy. So why wouldn't it just transform over into an environment for their workplace? Now, if they're going to socialize that way and they work that way, we're talking about a world where perhaps there is less human interaction in the physical realm. I don't think that's a good thing. Personally, I think it becomes problematic for on so many levels, Dr. Tenpenny. I think it's always better to sit down in person, face to face, meet with people, interact, be human, right? Like experience the world. But the reality is that we're barreling towards a situation because of the way our children, our next generation, interact with their peers today, more so than ever. I mean, I'm sure a lot of your audience with young children, they have students, they have children in school who are, being tutored and mentored digitally only, who are even learning digitally. There are incredible schools that are standing up in immersive environments. So it could be problematic. We need to encourage people, the adults in the community, to have their children put their devices down and meet in person, sit down at the dinner table, press the flesh, be with friends, enjoy nature, enjoy how beautiful nature is. You and I were talking before the show started about how we both appreciate like a beautiful snowfall still. Well, get these kids out of their homes and let them feel the snow, let them feel the sunshine. It's really important for humanity.
I think that's really true. You talked a little bit before the break about the disruption of employment in both white collar and blue collar world. I know from your bio you have two kids, and just imagine that they were seniors in high school. What career paths would you be suggesting that they pursue?
So it just so happens that my oldest is going to be a senior next year, and I think there's tremendous opportunity for this generation to jump into areas that are fueled by artificial intelligence. Personally, I prefer infrastructure because I believe that the cultural the idea of owning culture starts with controlling the ecosystem. So I would encourage those children who are 17 and 18 and thinking about their future to look at these business verticals where artificial intelligence can drive through the infrastructure. So think in terms of not becoming a creator generating content, but actually owning the platform or being a part of the platform that owns the tool that creates that piece of artwork. Think in terms of Jeff Bezos, right? He built a great infrastructure for a retailer that's now grown into so many different tendrils that we all use in Amazon, right? It's his infrastructure that's creating culture and controlling society. It's not so much about the book itself. And that's the nuance that I would do. The other area that I think is just growing in leaps and bounds, and that everybody should be taking advantage of, is cybersecurity. We as a country are not ready to protect ourselves with cybersecurity yet as it relates to geopolitics. Unfortunately, centralized governments that are led by dictatorships or by communist regimes are controlling their entire infrastructure so they could set themselves up to defend against cyber attacks much better than we can. Like, for example, here in New York City, the mayor's office had to create I look at it as a triangle, a strategic alliance with regards to the state and the federal government to help protect critical infrastructure, water supply, lighting, hospitals, banking from cyber attacks. Think about it. The advantage of being a free society comes with risks too. Most of our businesses that control the infrastructure are privately owned. So what happens if there's an incoming attack from, a bad actor in the Middle East or Asia or wherever it might be? They're coming in major amounts every single day. Somehow the government needs to warn the hospital that's run by the private sector, or the bank that's taking care of all of our finances, that this is coming in. So I think cybersecurity is a major area of growth. And then I'm really excited on the creative fields. Like I said earlier, I mean, the reality is that if you're a dreamer and you have great ideas, the new programming language is English. You no longer have to be a programmer and understand how to program in Python, et cetera. So if you're a creator and you have some great ideas as it relates to film or music or beyond, this is an exciting time to be able to do that.
That's really good news, because we've had a lot of conversations about this. I mean, one of the things that you have said, and you said previously in our interview, and you also say in your book, Some Future Day, and I want to read this quote to you and for the audience. You said in the book, "We can't let those who are afraid of AI drive the conversation for a couple of reasons. One reason is they are simply wrong." And I think that your voice of talking about the positive, upbeat, growth progressive things about AI is very different than a lot of voices that are out there that are really super concerned, a lot of authorities about what needs to be happening. How would you respond to their disruption, their thoughts of negativity, I guess you would say, and because you say that they're wrong, that the dangers should not, they should, the dangers.
Unequivocally, all they are is they're being doomsayers, and they're not looking at the upside. Look at just on the human level, Dr. Tenpenny, bring it into like the medical side of things. Right here in the tri-state area of New York, right out of Northwell Hospital Group, there's been incredible innovation through the use of AI. You could go and look in my book or on my show, Some Future Day. I interview the team. There's a team of people who have used artificial intelligence with a brain chip implant that creates a bypass in patients who suffer from paralyzation. And what they've done now with multiple people right here in New York, the video exists. You could look on my show. They've created a situation where these paralyzed patients have now, they have the ability to both move and feel again. So if we're going to create a world that is afraid, and as a result, we stagnate growth in artificial intelligence, these are some of the benefits that you're going to restrict. You're going to lose the ability for loved ones to be saved with advancements in science, biotechnology. We're going to have new medicines and cures to diseases that have never come before. There are so many positive uses. Think about the academic area. In Austin, Texas, there's a small school called Alpha, which is an AI-fueled school. Young students are benefiting from the use of AI. Everybody in your audience could relate to what I'm about to say. We've all been in a class where we are much stronger in one area, let's say history or science, but much weaker in another area, math. And the teacher has to teach in a slower way as it relates to those areas that the whole class isn't even, and it's a waste of time for a lot of students. What artificial intelligence is doing now is customizing education based on the student's ability. So if you need to focus more in an area where you're not as strong, AI will customize that education for you. But if you're already strong in history and you're ahead of the rest of the class, they're not going to focus on that area. They'll pull you along somewhere else. This school in Austin that I'm referencing, again, you could look it up. The data is there. They're showing that their students are having higher test results on standardized tests like the SAT than our traditional educational system. So there are so many benefits that are going to come to society that aren't obvious yet. But as it relates to health, as it relates to knowledge, it's going to be incredible, actually. And we need to be behind it. We need to support this. And by the way, if we don't, all of the bad actors, China included, they're going to beat us at it. So we need to go at it now because they're fully committed. They're not slowing down.
That is one of the really interesting and kind of cool things about your book, is that at the end of every chapter, you have a table of summary of like where we are and going things going forward. I'll be honest with you, I printed all those out because I thought they were really very good, and they're kind of like a cliff note to the whole rest of the book. So for the people that are listening to this, I really encourage you to get Marc's book, Marc Beckman's book, Some Future Day. And if you don't have time to read all of it, he's got it summarized for you at the end of each chapter. And it's a really good way. I think I printed it out because it's sort of a scorecard for me. It's like if you wrote this book in 2025, it was published in January of 2025, and as things go forward, you can actually follow the progression of where your predictions were and see where these things are going. I think it's a pretty cool thing about your book, honestly.
I appreciate it. So just to talk about the book for a second, if I may, because I think it's a valuable tool for your audience. I wrote the book for beginners. This is not a techie book. It's for the average person. If you have a small business, if you have a career goal or a career ambition, this is not a techie type of book. You don't have to have a tech background. It's for a beginner. And if you want to know how you can use this new technology to improve your career, to improve your family, and improve your community, at the end of every chapter, I give you the tools, as Dr. Tenpenny said. So it's something. I'm so happy that you highlighted that because I worked really hard to develop that outline. And there might be some better tools today. As you said, the book is a year old now. But at the end of the day, if you're a small business owner, you want to stand up a cool ad campaign today, all the tools are right in there for you.
And not only that, at the end of the book, you have about 12 pages of references, resources, other things that people can check out, other language learning models, other types of apps and things that are out there. That as I'm reading through this, and I gave it to the gal who does my video editing and things like that, she's like, "Wow, I had no idea there were all these things available." So that just elevates the book one more time of how useful this book is. It's just not just another book about AI.
I'm so grateful you're saying that because that section of the book, what I did was I took from so many classes that I taught at NYU, I took this corpus of information. Any small business owner that wants to learn how to leverage emerging technologies for their industry beyond AI, all of the tools are in there. The playbook is in there. And you're the first person that brought it up. I've been in so many different interviews on television and podcasts and beyond. I'm so happy that you highlighted that. It's like such a golden document for somebody saying like, how do I do search engine optimization? What do I do from a branding perspective? How do I create a logo? What do I do for social media? What can I do for a media buy? It's all in there. It's like a marketer's playbook. And I'm so grateful that you're mentioning that. It's like years and years of work and it's all right there.
And it's actually, like I said, at those tables that you created that are really very good. At the end of each chapter, I printed them out,
I
and
love you.
to be totally I was going to print out the end of where you have all those references.
Yeah.
So many pages, it just went on and on. And I thought, Sherry, what's wrong with you? You've got the book. You don't need to print this.
Yeah, it's really a very useful tool.
Well, let me just change gears just a little bit and ask you more of a political question. What do you think about Trump administration's AI centralization policies?
I love it. I think that what President Trump is doing is absolutely the best policy as it relates to making sure that Americans can profit from it and Americans can be safe. What he's done effectively is given entrepreneurs the ability to shine. We could create tons of value across different sectors because of President Trump. He's also the controversy that you might be familiar with, or some of your audience, is that he's also handcuffing the states' ability to regulate. And I think that's a good thing because what's happened with AI is it's a funny time we're living in, Dr. Tenpenny. Think about this. We're living in a time period where people fear what they don't know. So what they do is they regulate. What is happening with regards to the law community and what's happening in particular with the Democrats is what they want to do over and over and over is regulate. So now what President Trump is doing is unlocking American ingenuity. He's unlocking our ability to compete internationally. Here's a great example, something that people might not imagine. So I received a call from a real estate developer here in New York City. He wanted to get my advice. Imagine this. He's creating an entire community, residential community, in an area, a mountainous area with nobody, that has an old coal energy source that's going to be used to fuel a new hyperscale data center. So they know all of these new jobs are going to go to this region. It's in Pennsylvania. It's like this cold area. And he's built, this guy is building, it has nothing to do with AI, it has nothing to do with energy. And he's going in and he's building an entire community where people can live surrounding this new AI data center, hyperscale data center, which is required. And it's being built because President Trump is deregulating the energy sector because he knows it's required to fuel the growth of artificial intelligence. So you have this old coal mine, which was basically turned off during the Biden administration, which is being turned on again to fuel the hyperscale data center. And now we need construction to be built in that area so that we can operate the business. It's incredible. What President Trump is doing from a policy perspective will keep America in the number one position. And we got to keep competing. If President Trump loses power at the midterms, if President Trump is not in office, or a Republican rather, is not in office for the next presidential situation, we could slide quickly. I mean, we have a lot of competition in China. We have a lot of competition in the Middle East. We could slide from our number one position, and it's going to hurt.
That's a really astute observation of how this is all going together because, so much of what happens in politics, we, the people, we just get the cliff notes. We just see the signing of the executive order. We see, a little press conference, and
Sure.
we don't really understand the full ramifications of some of the things that are actually happening there, which you give a bigger perspective to. And talking about the midterms that are coming up, how is AI currently being used in political campaigns to influence voter behavior?
It's a great question. A few ways. So, first, what we're seeing is the creation of campaigns through the use of artificial intelligence. And as we had mentioned earlier, this could be still images, video images, and sound. Now, it's an advantageous way for someone in politics to create efficiencies because they could create this content, this campaign, very quickly and for very little money. But here's the problem. At some point, Americans are going to become savvy to the fact that we're being bombarded with AI generated messaging. And guess what's going to happen? We're going to stop listening. And that's problematic. So we're going to have so much noise in the marketplace, we're not going to be interested in hearing anymore because we're going to know it's machine made. I think that's the first thing. The second thing that I think is worth noting is data analytics. AI right now, in my opinion, again, for your audience, you could break it down into two silos. There's generative AI, which we've been talking about for the entire show, but then there's the data analytics piece. And this is really where AI is most powerful today. And these campaign managers have the ability to analyze what particular segments within their target are interested in, issues that are important to them. And then they could custom create campaign messaging towards those communities in a way that is really fantastic. And I think that that's the best use case for a politician in the midterms, data analytics. And then finally, it's interesting, I had mentioned to you that I worked on the First Lady's book, her artificial intelligence audiobook in multiple languages in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Hindi. Well, now we're going to see the similar use, but for politicians to speak in big markets that have, a melting pot of sorts. So imagine here in New York City, if you're running for an office, and you can speak to so many different populations, but you don't know how to speak in their particular native tongue. It's probably not English here in New York City. So now you can ramp up your message in your own voice in all of these languages. And that's the third use case that I see.
Oh, that's great. Well, Mark, we have about 2 minutes left. What would you like to leave our audience with here today about your messaging and about your book that is so really, really important, your book, Some Future Day? What would you like to leave our audience with here today?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me today. It's such an honor to be on your show and to meet you. I really do appreciate it. Artificial intelligence is easy to use. If you're a beginner and you have no tech background, pick up my book. I provide all of the tools. All you need to do is know how to use plain English. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to have a tech background. No need to be an engineer. If you could speak plain English and prompt AI, you could improve your career, your family, and your community. Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. You can pick up the book on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, any major bookseller. I was really fortunate. The book went to #1 in sales, and it's available again now. So I would highly recommend to your audience, use it. It's a great tool, as you highlighted, and I'm really grateful.
And is there some place where we can follow you and follow your work as this whole AI thing develops and evolves?
Yep. So I'm on all social media platforms. You could follow me on Instagram, on X, on LinkedIn, and it's always at Marc Beckman, MarcBeckman.
And what about your podcast?
My show could be found, it's called Some Future Day, and you could find that on YouTube. You could find that on Apple, on Spotify, and beyond.
Wow. Well, Mark, I was so looking forward to this interview, and it was not disappointing. In fact, it was over
I
the
hope.
moon. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And now, listeners, you'll have a better idea of a more balanced perspective of AI because as Mark said, there's a lot of gloom doomers out there that are really worried and really concerned that AI is going to take over everything in the world and going to be the end of humanity as we know it. But Mark gives us a completely different perspective. And seriously, I really encourage you to get his book because it's a book that you will have on your shelf and will be very useful as time goes on. You'll be able to refer back to it again and again. So with that, I want to close out with one of my favorite verses from the Bible. I close every one of my podcasts with, whether they are live or pre-recorded, which is Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in trouble and be persistent in prayer. Lean into God. He'll never let you down. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here Eastern Time at AmericaOutloud.news and iHeartRadio. I want to thank everybody who's been here today. And you can find out more about me and about everything that we do by going to dr10penny.com and also following me on Substack. You can please follow me on X and Instagram at BusyDrT. So with that, have a great rest of your day, everyone. We will see you tomorrow or the next time right here at the 10 Penny Files. Goodbye and God bless.